President Trump floating the possibility of sending checks to Americans to help alleviate the rise in cost. And that's going to come in from tariff revenue. The president taking to Truth Social, saying people that are against tariffs are fools. We're now the richest, most respected country in the world with almost no inflation and a record stock market price. 401ks are highest ever. We are taking in trillions of dollars and will soon begin paying down our enormous debt, $37 trillion. Record investment in the USA, plants and factories going up all over the place. A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everyone.
Yeah, this comes as Democrats and liberal media have been blaming Trump and the tariffs for high prices on several goods. We'll talk about that with Ken Broo, a news talk show host of 700 WLW Cincinnati. Matt Lieberman is here, publisher of the Lieberman Files and a former U.S. Senate candidate in Georgia. Thank you both for being on. We do appreciate that. Ken, talk to us about maybe how you would cover this on your program. And $2,000 check, that would be welcome from a lot of folks if indeed this does play out from these tariffs.
Well, who knows where the money's coming from right now? This is either some sort of an attempt to diffuse what's going on in the Supreme Court, or perhaps, and you never know with the president. I love the president to death, but that might be one of the things he hasn't exactly thought through. Like, where's this money coming from? How his Treasury Secretary was on the talk shows this Sunday, and he couldn't give any definitive answers. But would I like $2,000? Yeah, send me $2,000. But I don't think the government ought to be sending out free money to anybody. We had that during COVID, and look where we wound up with inflation. So let's see what his thoughts are on this, besides saying, yeah, let's give this free money to everybody. And by the way, where's the cutoff? Where's the cutoff line? What is high income? What is low income? In my business, I'm probably low income. You know, the radio business doesn't pay as well as it does in TV, so maybe I'm in line for a $2,000 check. But I think this thing is thin on details right now.
Sure. And to your point, Ken, the Treasury Secretary joined ABC News over the weekend. Here's what he had to say.
You know, the $2,000 dividend could come in lots of forms, in lots of ways, George. You know, it could be just the tax decreases that we are seeing on the president's agenda. You know, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, deductibility of auto loans. So, you know, those are substantial deductions that, you know, are being financed in the tax bill.
Matt, what do you think of that explanation?
Well, I think he was vamping in a way, trying to figure out what he could say about what the president had put out on Truth Social, which, as is often the case, may not have gone through a full policy manufacture process. But you know, hey, the form I'd like my $2,000 in is in the form of $2,000. That would be my preferred form. I think another impact that the president may have had here. You know, we see the government shutdown seems to be coming to an end, thank goodness. And with 8 Democrats crossing the aisle to cast a vote that indicates we're gonna be able to pass something to open the government back up. You know, it's been terrible for the country, and you know, it's kind of like you have 2 doctors in a hospital room over a patient that's ailing. Democratic doctor, Republican doctor, each of them saying, I'm not going to do anything because it's your responsibility. I'm not going to help this patient because it's your responsibility. Eventually, the family says, look, you got to do something. You have to help us. And I think, although the Democrats did well in the elections last week, these 8 moderates realize this can't go on forever. And the president, with a gesture like this, you know, shows again the executive branch ultimately is able to deliver for the people more than the legislative branch. And if the Democrats kept sitting on their hands, the president will eventually be able to outflank them with actions he can take on behalf of the American people as the executive.
Yeah, I mean, there is a face to the suffering, and that is indeed the American people. And it'll only continue to grow as we're in day 41 of the government shutdown. We'll end with that with Ken. Just an overall thought here. Senator Bernie Sanders called this a political disaster, which I don't know if he's checked with his constituents. They're not looking at this in terms of politics in this moment, with the airlines, with the SNAP benefits, with federal workers not getting paid right now. Final thoughts, Ken.
Yeah, I'm shocked. A politician may not be telling the truth. This is good news for Bernie Sanders. And as you look ahead to 2026 and then on to 2028, the real issue for the Democrats, as we all know, is what side of the party controls that party. So there could be some war inside the Democrat Party, and maybe there'll be the squabbling they'll have to deal with that the Republicans had to deal with back when the Tea Party came in, what was it, 15 years ago. So all this is great fodder for you guys and for talk radio, but we have to remember it's real Americans who are getting hurt, that this thing should never have happened, that this was a Democrat shutdown, and in the end, I'm not sure what they got other than a discussion about the Affordable Care Act. You know, I want to have a discussion about playing second base for the New York Yankees. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. So I think this is probably something that was starting to affect the Democrats, and that's why you saw it come to a head here over the weekend. Let's hope they get pen to paper and we don't have to constantly be going through this nonsense over and over and over again.
It could have done this 41 days ago, right? But,
exactly.
you know, can't call up John Thune. You never know. He's saying, yeah, we'll have a talk, but it's not a guarantee those subsidies are going to remain. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Ken Broo and Matt Lieberman, we do appreciate it. All right, still